strikes Lebanon's El Hadath after issuing urges evacuation orders. On urges the U.S. and France to fulfill responsibilities regarding Israeli violations. And Netanyahu and Katz state that Israel targeted precise missiles in Beirut.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Israel has launched an airstrike on Hadath in Beirut's southern suburbs. That came after the Israeli army spokesperson for Arab media, Afichai Adrai, had urgently urged residents of Beirut's southern suburbs, particularly in Hadath, to evacuate. The warning specified that individuals in buildings marked in red on a provided map, as well as adjacent structures, are near Hezbollah facilities. He emphasized the necessity of immediate evacuation to ensure the safety of families and instructed individuals to move at least 300 meters away, as indicated on the map. The Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has urged the United States and France to fulfill their responsibilities regarding the violations committed by the occupying forces. Aoun called on Washington and Paris to compel Israel to immediately cease its aggressions. He condemned the Israeli bombardment of Beirut's southern suburbs, warning that Israel's ongoing actions undermine stability and exacerbate tensions. He emphasized that the escalation of Israeli hostilities poses real dangers to the region, threatening its overall stability and security. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has declared that Israel continues its assaults on civilians, creating an atmosphere of fear among the peaceful population. Salam called for the expedited complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanese territory. Furthermore, the Prime Minister reaffirmed Lebanon's commitment to fully implementing Resolution 1701 and adhering to the established security arrangements. He also noted that the Lebanese army is actively carrying out its duties and expanding its presence in the southern region to ensure security and stability. The Lebanese Foreign Ministry has urged the sponsors of the ceasefire to exert pressure on the Israeli occupying forces to halt their violations. It emphasized that Israel's aggressions undermine regional peace and security. The ministry also highlighted that Israel obstructs Lebanon's efforts to maintain its national sovereignty, calling for immediate action to address these issues. This statement reflects Lebanon's determination to protect its rights and ensure stability in the region amid ongoing tensions. The United Nations has condemned the Israeli airstrike on Beirut's southern suburbs, expressing concern over the fear and panic it has instigated regarding the potential resurgence of violence in Lebanon. The UN urged all parties to refrain from actions that undermine the ceasefire agreement in the country. Additionally, it reaffirmed the necessity to implement UN Resolution 1701, emphasizing the importance of maintaining peace and stability in the region amid escalating tensions. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office and the Israeli Ministry of Defense have stated that they targeted precise missiles in Beirut's southern suburbs that pose a threat to Israel. In a joint statement, Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz asserted that the southern suburbs of Beirut will not serve as a sanctuary for Hezbollah. They also emphasized that the Lebanese government bears the responsibility for preventing such threats from emerging, highlighting the urgency of addressing potential dangers to Israeli security. After that, the Israeli occupying army announced the destruction of Hezbollah's infrastructure in the Beirut suburbs, claiming it was used for the storage of precision missiles. The Lebanese Civil Defense has reported that ambulance teams are deployed in the Hadath area to ensure a prompt response to any emergencies. Additionally, the Civil Defense announced that firefighting teams successfully extinguished the flames without any recorded injuries. Their swift actions underscore the effectiveness of emergency services in maintaining safety and security in the region, highlighting their readiness to tackle unforeseen incidents efficiently. And for more analysis, we now move to Salma Marwan in our newsroom. Hello, Salma.
Thank you, Salma. And for further analysis on the matter, we're joined from Cairo by the researcher in Israeli affairs and the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs member, Dr. Ahmed Fouad Anwar. Dr. Ahmed, welcome to Qnews. And first off, how does today's Israeli airstrike on southern Beirut reflect broader patterns of Israeli violations of the truce in Lebanon?
Greetings to you and to the dear guests, to dear viewers. Of course, it reflects that Israel is violating what they have signed upon every day, and this truce that was reached in a very difficult manner. I think this policy that Netanyahu is adopting, he's trying to achieve as much destruction as possible to cover his failure. But the Israeli economy is paralyzed now, and the casualties persist in the Israeli military in Gaza, in Philadelphia, and in Al-Shaja'iyya, which really upsets the internal Israeli public opinion. And for these violations in Lebanon, this actually erupts the Lebanese resistance as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, integrating the United States and France into our conversation since they brokered this ceasefire agreement, what are the political and diplomatic implications of Lebanon's call for the United States and French pressure on Israel?
I think a lot of efforts are being exerted in this regard to stop the Israeli escalation and this Israeli aggression, because this contradicts with the U.S. Trump, the U.S. visit, the U.S. president visit to the region. He wants. The U.S. President Donald Trump wants to pave the way for his visit to the Middle East, as he paved the way to his entrance into the White House. There were pressures to conclude the ceasefire agreement before Trump assumes office and before he was sworn in. And I expect further pressures during the upcoming few days to pave the way for such a visit to the Middle East.
Now, sir, could the repeated attacks and the evacuation orders signal a shift towards a wider escalation between Israel and Hezbollah?
Of course, all the scenarios now are possible, as the Israeli violations are repetitive, whether in Gaza or southern Lebanon, and amid these pressures on the resistance, that will only result, that will never result on them raising the white flag or releasing the detainees from Gaza.
Now, sir, looking ahead specifically in Lebanon, what is Israel's upcoming strategy? Is Israel aiming to redraw the rules of engagement in southern Lebanon with these latest strikes?
I think with the new chief of staff, the Israeli side was depending on stopping the casualties, but they were not able to do that. There are a lot of concerns regarding opening the Lebanese forefront and responding to such airstrikes that affected Beirut. And I think it's difficult to get the resistance from one side to commit to what has been signed. signed upon, and there will be a lot of pressures from France and the United States to stop the hostilities and to stop Netanyahu, who's trying to get out of his internal issues by threatening the stability of the region to cover his failure and the casualties that the Israeli community had to bear since Netanyahu took office in 2022.
Now, assessing Hezbollah's military capabilities, how is Hezbollah likely to respond to the destruction of its infrastructure in Beirut's southern suburbs?
I think that the Lebanese resistance is still able to respond to the Israeli actions more than the resistance in Gaza. I think it would be a catastrophic scenario to the deteriorated Israeli economy and to the internal Israeli public opinion, who are expressing their outrage now, and they requested Netanyahu to end the war, not only to stop the war for a temporary period. They want to end the war permanently. And Netanyahu now considers this far-right alliance as a ground to gain more supporters, but he's gaining more opposition by the second.
From Cairo, that was the researcher in Israeli affairs and the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs member, Dr. Ahmed Fuad Anwar. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews. And now we go back to Salma Al-Fi'i in our studio.
Thank you, Salma. The Arab Republic of Egypt has extended its sincere condolences to the Islamic Republic of Iran over the victims of the explosion that occurred at Shahid Raga'i port in Bandar Abbas, southern Iran, resulting in a number of deaths and injuries. Egypt affirms its solidarity with the Iranian people in facing the devastating aftermath of this incident and expresses its heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims, wishing a speedy recovery to all of the injured. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati held discussions with Omani and Iranian counterparts, as well as the U.S. President's envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, regarding the third round of negotiations between the United States and Iran concerning the Iranian nuclear file. Egyptian Foreign Minister emphasized Egypt's full support for all initiatives aimed at reaching political solutions through dialogue and negotiation, which would enhance the prospects for achieving security and stability in the region. He expressed hope that the negotiations would lead to a balanced political settlement that contributes to de-escalation and alleviates tensions in the region and initiates a new phase that helps restore regional stability. The Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has offered his condolences to the families affected by the explosion at Bandar Abbas, Iran's biggest port. And according to Iranian state media, the blast, which occurred on Saturday, April the 26th, was likely caused by the explosion of chemical materials, killing at least 35 people and injuring more than 1,200. A Defense Ministry spokesperson told State TV that no military-grade material was present at the blast-hit Shahid Raga'i port in southern Iran, denying media reports suggesting that the explosion may have been linked to the mishandling of solid fuel used for missiles. A massive explosion at the port of Shahid Raga'i in southern Iran's Hormozgan province has left 36 people dead and more than 1,240 others injured, according to the Iranian news agency IRNA. And the blast occurred Saturday morning at a gas tank within the Shahid Raga'i section of the Bandar Abbas port complex, causing extensive damage to nearby buildings and cars. And Iran's Mehr news agency reported that as the fire spread to other containers, a second, smaller explosion took place at around 9 p.m. local time. Officials said the initial blast was caused by chemical materials stored in a container at the port. Meanwhile, Iranian government spokeswoman Fatima Mohajirani urged caution against any premature speculation regarding the cause of the incident, pending the results of the ongoing investigation. Despite the nearly 1,500 kilometers separating them, Pakistan announced that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif welcomed Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian's readiness to stand with Pakistan and help de-escalate tensions with India. The Prime Minister of Pakistan said that his country seeks peace in the region and that if Iran wishes to play a role in this regard, Islamabad will welcome it. Pakistan said it condemns all forms of terrorism and has no connection to the recent terrorist attack in Pahalgam, located in the Indian-administered Kashmir region. Sharif also expressed Pakistan's readiness to participate in a transparent and unbiased investigation into the terrorist attack. And now we move on to the latest updates in Gaza. A Hamas delegation has concluded discussions with the Egyptian officials in Cairo about efforts to broker a ceasefire in Gaza. The agreement includes continued communication towards achieving a comprehensive deal involving a ceasefire, detainees exchange, and reconstruction. The PLO Executive Committee has officially appointed Hussein el-Sheikh as Deputy Chairman and Vice President of the State of Palestine following President Mahmoud Abbas's nomination and the Central Council's April 24th approval. El-Sheikh is seen as Abbas's likely successor. The committee discussed implementing recent decisions, advancing national dialogue among factions, and addressing the crisis in Gaza. Abbas stressed the urgency of humanitarian aid and full Palestinian governance in Gaza. The committee will reconvene next Saturday to choose a new Secretary General. The Qatari foreign minister has expressed deep concern over the collapse of the Gaza ceasefire, emphasizing the urgent need for renewed efforts to stabilize the region. During a joint press conference with his Turkish counterpart in Doha, he said Qatar is committed to working alongside Egypt and the United States to advance the second phase of the Gaza agreement, which aims to bring lasting peace and humanitarian relief to the area. In addition, the minister underscored the importance of securing the release of detainees in Gaza while condemning the use of starvation as a weapon against Palestinians. He also reiterated Qatar's support for the aspirations of the Syrian people, emphasizing the country's dedication to regional stability and humanitarian efforts. Turkey's foreign minister has noted that humanitarian aid has not entered Gaza for nearly 2 months and called for the reopening of crossings to facilitate assistance. That came during a joint press conference with his Qatari counterpart in Doha, where Turkey's foreign minister discussed regional issues and crises, emphasizing Turkish-Qatari efforts to find lasting solutions. He also praised Egyptian and Qatari efforts towards achieving a ceasefire in Gaza, condemned Israel's actions as ethnic cleansing, and reaffirmed the importance of a two-state solution for regional peace and stability. Israel media reports suggest that the Israeli military is preparing to expand its operations in Gaza if no progress is made in hostage exchange talks within 2 weeks. Sources say a large number of reserve forces will be called upon to intensify the conflict. Israeli military sources have confirmed a new regulation requiring soldiers to stay beyond their mandatory service due to a shortage of personnel. Approximately 10,000 soldiers are needed due to the ongoing war in Gaza and unsuccessful recruitment efforts. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, the UNRWA, states that Israel has blocked humanitarian aid and commercial goods from entering Gaza since March. The blockade has exacerbated the humanitarian crisis, with UNRWA calling for an immediate end to the siege. The UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the OCHA, warns that Gaza's humanitarian situation is worsening, with critical supplies running low due to continued border closures. The UN calls for the urgent access to deliver humanitarian aid to prevent widespread famine. And in Tel Aviv, thousands have protested for peace, demanding an end to the Gaza war and detainee release.
Thousands of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv, calling for an end to the ongoing war in Gaza and the release of all detainees. The demonstration attracted families of those held captive, citizens who oppose Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the conflict. Protesters expressed their dissent by blowing whistles, waving flags, and chanting against Netanyahu, while some displayed photos of Palestinian children killed in the violence since October 7, 2023. The protesters emphasized the need for de-escalation, believing it would help secure the release of detainees still being held. The Israeli aggression began in response to attacks on October 7, 2023, which led to 1,200 Israeli deaths and the capture of 251 Israelis. In retaliation, Israeli airstrikes have reportedly claimed over 51,300 Palestinian lives, according to health officials. Since the collapse of a ceasefire on March 18th, more than 2,000 Palestinians, most of them civilians, have died, and hundreds of thousands have been displaced as Israel expanded its control over Gaza.
Robots took center stage at the first embodied intelligence games held in Wuxi, East China, impressing visitors with a wide range of abilities from chess mastery to mobility assistance. Embodied intelligence robots, which combine artificial intelligence and robotics technologies, are capable of autonomously perceiving, thinking, and acting in real-world environments, similar to humans. The event featured robots that could engage in conversation, dive underwater, make coffee, and even grill barbecue, drawing significant attention from attendees. And developers highlighted advances in algorithmic technology that have made sophisticated robots more compact and affordable, paving the way for wider household use. Focus was also placed on expanding real-world applications, with developers working on data collection and robotic reinforcement, learning to accelerate integration into industrial and interactive environments. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we have been covering. Israel strikes Lebanon's El Hadath after issuing urges evacuation orders. ON urges the US and France to fulfill responsibilities regarding Israeli violations. And Netanyahu and Katz state that Israel targeted precise missiles in Beirut. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour, and don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.